The title of this podcast is Let Go or Be Dragged. One of the things that I have made a priority over the last decade is the practice of acceptance. It didn't come easy to do because Keith 1.0 really was identified with trying consciously and unconsciously identified with trying to control things to make them go a certain way so that I would feel okay inside. It took me a long term to realize that I have very little control over anything that happens in life. The one area that I can exercise significant amount of control is within, working on me. But because of this lack of awareness, whether it was conscious or unconscious, I experienced a tremendous amount of suffering. These days, I have learned to really practice acceptance. And if there is nothing that I can do about the situation externally, I immediately go to what can I do about it internally, which often means practicing acceptance, letting go of the way that I think it should be, and creating a different relationship with whatever it is that my ego or Keith 1.0 wants to be different. This has served me again really, really well because inner peace is something that I value tremendously. And although I said I wanted to be peaceful before, my behavior, my actions didn't support that. As a result, I was dragged along, and that included a tremendous amount of suffering along the way. I don't know about you, but I don't find that the whole idea of being dragged anywhere to be enjoyable or comforting at all. But that has certainly happened over the years. When I think about back to my experiences in relationships in which I wasn't acting in a way that is my best self, there was a lot of suffering there. When either I was either clinging in the relationship or I was avoiding having a really important conversation that I needed to have with the other party. By not attending to it, I was being dragged along. And what I mean by being dragged along is there was no completion to it. The completion either with recognizing that this part of the relationship, whether it's an intimate partner or friendship, had come to an end, and having the conversation with them to bring it to completion, or whether it was uh, an aspect of the relationship that really could have used some attention, but I either kept avoiding it, or if I didn't avoid it, I was like pestering or nagging about it, creating suffering, whatever the case may be. If I didn't practice acceptance, practice letting go, creating a different relationship with whatever it was in those relationships, then I was being dragged along. It was like an open file, one way or the other. And since then, I've really let go. I let go of attachment and need in my relationships to where I have really just allowed people to have the ability to choose in relationship and being satisfied with their choice. One of most recently, there was a good friend in ToBeRe who hasn't been showing up here recently. And so we had a lunch and we talked, and he understands the importance of resistance training, but he has some reasons which are not even important to going into. And so he is, to my knowledge, not doing resistance training now, which is okay. I really value the friendship more than anything. And of course, I care about his physical health. But I could be dragged along in a situation by not having, by trying to convince him that he should stay connected and he should just show up, and I can modify the exercises so that, his experience is a little bit different, because he mentioned that he is just done after the workout. He just wants, he doesn't have the energy to do anything else on his Sunday. And I could argue and say things like, well, your body's adjusting, or I can change the workout so you do have more energy later. I could do all of that. Or I could just accept his choice and do so with an open heart and not, just do so with an open heart is what I could do. And so I practiced that. Otherwise, if I try to do all those other things that I mentioned and trying to convince him, that would include or mean that I'd be getting dragged along, and I'm not for that. The same thing happens at work. When I present an idea or I have an idea of how I think things should go, and that idea isn't adopted, I could be dragged along by trying to convince people to see it a different way or to see the value in my idea. I could do that. And I'm not saying just completely abandon an idea, perhaps take an intelligent approach or take intelligent action with the idea by asking constructive questions. So what is a barrier to considering the idea? Is there anything that I can do to garner your support for the idea? But after the key is if I make those constructive, if I have those constructive questions, then I'm not attached to them giving me a certain answer. Like, okay, now that you have the answers to my question, now that I give you the answers to these questions, I'm supportive. We can still have the constructive conversation and they can still come back and say no. And how I know that I'm not attached to the outcome is if they say no, I don't suffer as a result of that. And if I do, then that becomes my work. So what I've learned to do is when I present an idea to accept whatever the other party says. Otherwise, I'm getting dragged along. And I'm finding the same thing that's happening today in the world with what's happening on the political landscape and everything else. I just want to contribute kindness and love to every space that I'm in. And I am trying to not be attached to ideas about how other people should be living their lives or what their beliefs should be. When I do that, I find myself internally, Keith 1.0 gets to be superior about how he thinks things should be, what people should believe. And as a result, Keith 2.0, who wants inner peace and to be loving and kind and to serve, gets dragged along. So I encourage you to look at these areas of your life in which you are not experiencing inner peace. And once you've identified those areas, ask yourself, what am I not doing? Why am I being dragged along? Is it because I'm not practicing acceptance? I am I am not letting go. And once you answer those questions, put your full attention there and make a choice to just let go.